with Sarah Hirschlag here from Wintrust.
Hello, everyone.
We're going to do a little bit of questions and answers on loan process. So our first question is for the loan and payment questions. What do you kind of recommend for when I send someone to you, what are they going to need to be doing?
Yep, originally what they're going to do is complete an application, whether that be via email, telephone, or a personal appointment. What we're going to do is we are going to pull credit. We are going to look at your income, and we are then going to determine what programs you qualify for based off of that. Most of the programs will be based off upon credit scores, debt to income ratios, certain things like that, which will tell us what guidelines you do qualify for. In that, we will calculate your estimated monthly payments, which will include principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, private mortgage insurance if that applies. We're going to see what you afford by your debt to income ratio. We're going to look at what type of debt you have on your credit report, your income, and we are going to then again qualify you based off of that. Different programs have different debt to income ratios, so depending on which program we choose, that's going to determine what amounts you can go up to, how much you can borrow, and how much you can afford. When we look at that, we are going to then tell you based off of estimated taxes, estimated homeowners insurance, principal and interest, what you would qualify for, what the payment would be, what the interest rate would be, as all of those do make a difference.
So for the next question, you mentioned the word mortgage insurance. A lot of people who are first-time home buyers don't understand what mortgage insurance is.
Mortgage insurance, PMI goes, it stands for private mortgage insurance, or MI, which is on FHA loans, which is mortgage insurance. Basically, when you do not put down 20%, you will have that extra insurance, which is benefiting the lender in the event you default on the loan. That is no longer on the property with conventional once you hit the 20%. FHA, it will be on for the life of the loan unless you refinance or pay the loan off.
Very well said. So I know we both deal with a lot of first-time home buyers. What is the difference between a conventional or an FHA? Or the other questions I've been getting a lot of is if I use the IDA grants, which is the grants that come from the state, can they intertwine them with these other types of loans?
Very good question. So basically when people question whether or not I'm a first-time home buyer or I have a first-time home buyer loan, typically it is still an FHA conventional USDA loan or a VA loan. The type of down payment assistance programs go along with each type of those loans. So for an example, we offer certain different types of down payment assistance programs. Many lenders will, and you can also stack those. What I mean by that is you could use the IDA down payment assistance plus your own money, plus the DPP grant, which is another type of grant out there. We also have one at our institution, Wintrust, which allows you to get an additional $2,500. So you can put all of these grants together. It depends on your income, qualifications and such, but those would go with an FHA loan or a VA loan or a conventional loan.
Okay. So credit approval and credit rating. What is the average credit score that anyone can get a loan with?
Yes, so depending on what lender you go with, each lender will offer different credit scores for different programs. Right now, conventional doesn't have an actual credit score. FHA, typically lenders will sometimes go as low as 580. Same thing with VA and USDA. So each lender will offer different programs, which will also entail what low credit scores they can go to or go as low as. Sometimes, depending on credit score goes, each credit score is based off of the program that you choose. So some of the down payment assistance programs require certain scores. Then the type of loan that you use the down payment assistance programs with will also have their own scores. So basically, typically every lender will offer different interest rates, different scores that they'll tolerate in their guidelines. So it basically depends on the lender.
Okay. What is the credit score for in Illinois? We have what they call IDA. Mm-hmm. And in Wisconsin, they have what they call WIDA. What is the credit scores for?
Yep. The lowest credit scores for IDA is a 640. Currently, conventional it doesn't require a minimum credit score. However, we do run it through an automated underwriting system that takes into consideration credit, income, assets, and will give us a decision based on the information we've entered. So typically, you lower your credit score, the more reserves you have will make a file stronger and can determine what program you qualify for.
Okay. And is it the same way for WIDA?
It is the same for WIDA, a 640 as well. Okay. You can use both of those programs with any of the type of lending with the you can use IDA or WIDA with conventional or FHA or VA.
Okay. What is the process or the timeline from the time it takes you to get your pre-approval letter and to get us into that whole process?
So depending on certain things, once you do apply, we would like to look at income. We obviously will pull credit. That's what's going to give us a solid pre-approval that you're able to give, to you, Brandy, to go ahead and search for that home. Typically, depending on how much information you're able to give us, we typically ask for information based off of your current employment type situation, what type of employment you have, and so on. So what we're going to do is take a look at all of that. If it's a pretty straight and narrow and we have all the information, I would say as soon as, 20 minutes. However, if there's more information we have to verify, overtime, bonus, if you're self-employed, sometimes we need additional things that may take a little bit longer. But I would say as long as we can get all the information we're requesting, typically within 24 hours at the latest.
So not the full 2 weeks as some of these other people are trying to say that it takes them. That's why I always say to all of my buyers, if you're going to be buying here in the area between the Rockford area and the Beloit Janesville area, always local, because you can get your pre-approval letter within 24 hours and not missing out on any of these great homes.
And if there is additional things we need, it may hinder you from, of course, getting it at that particular moment. But just, I would say, if you're entertaining the idea, talk to a lender, because the way to make sure that you're able to make an offer and get into the home is to be prepared. And being prepared is the best thing to do, and the best avenue to start at is starting with a lender. And then obviously, once you have that in place, then seeing what you can afford based off of that.
So a lot of our past clients that we've worked with, some of them lately have been a little bit more on the aspect, I want my monthly payment to be XYZ. Mm-hmm. And then they're also forgetting, when you buy a home, you also have to have what they call money in your bank account for closing. Can you explain a little bit of that?
I can. So basically, when we are looking at money and when we're looking at down payments, we're going to look at your last 1 to 2 months of bank statements, depending on which program you go with. However, I would just plan on 2 months. When we're looking at 2 months of those bank statements, we're looking for large deposits. We're looking for NSF checks. We're looking for everything in those bank statements, basically. When we're looking through those bank statements, if you happen to have a large deposit, we're going to ask where that came from. We are going to ask and make sure it's from a source that we can use. For an example, cash. I had cash at home. I don't know, took care of dogs on the weekend, and I saved up a bunch of money, and I don't want to put it in the bank account. I'm saving up for a rainy day. That is cash we cannot use for your down payment because it's not verifiable. You can get a gift. You can also season your money. So as long as that money's deposited at least 2 months before I need that bank statement, you would be fine doing that as well. But you just have to be careful what you're putting in and what money you're using. The other thing too is that if you are planning on purchasing, one thing that you're going to need from them is earnest money. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that becomes a scramble at the end to figure out where that's coming from. So going into it, knowing that you need to allocate a certain amount of money once the offer is accepted to give to Brandy, knowing it's liquid, knowing where it's coming from is going to be key to prepare.
So another thing is when you're getting these type of earnest monies, we could be anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000. What we're going to want to see is when we do our full vetting of everything, is what Sarah's going to want is we have to show where those funds came from. So if you're getting it from a gift from a family member and it's a large gift, it all has to be vetted from that person you're getting it from. When we're saying earnest money, earnest money is due within that first 24 hours of us going under contract. If you do not have this type of earnest money, I'm going to suggest maybe you put off on doing a home search. This is where a lot of our contracts are falling out of escrow, is they don't have the money to close, or they've been more fixated on, I don't want my monthly payment over what I'm currently paying for mortgage for rent now, and then they forget that, you know, there's a whole other line of items that we're going to need. For instance, the cash to close. What is usually the traditional cash to close on like 150, 160,000?
So it depends on the program that they're going with. So what's going to determine that is how much down payment they're putting down, closing costs, which lender you're choosing for closing costs, if you're paying points, all sorts of things go into closing costs, which that could be another segment for us later.
Yep.
But in addition to that, what you're going to want to allocate is you're going to want to talk to a lender. So when you're talking to your lender and you're getting pre-approved, they should be telling you what the payment is. They should be telling you what your cash to close is. There's cash to close estimates, cash to close worksheets. Look at those, understand those. If you don't know where these numbers are coming from, now is the time to ask before you're in an offer situation.
And always remember, your real estate agent is not a lender. Therefore, we do not know what you are getting and what you're using. So it's always best. Your best friend here is going to be your lender.
And always best to ask. So before you do anything, ask. I don't care how many times you have to bug me, how many times you have to text if this is okay if I do this. Even the simple things of having your credit pulled as you're going along, through the process, or people do things that you're not even aware that will cause a problem. So anytime you're going to add debt, have credit pulled, spend money, use your credit card, you need to think of all of these things when you're buying a home throughout the process until you close, because that can definitely make a decision. And you see these horror stories of people, oh my gosh, I got denied at the last minute. Well, there's usually something along the way that probably went a little bit sideways. The other thing too is that you also need to know, again, cash to close, where your money is coming from, how much money you need, and understand that part. Really understand, because there's a lot of numbers.
Alrighty, so I'm hoping to do more of these. So with that, I'm Brandy with Keller Williams Realty Signature. This is Sarah Hirschlag with
Wintrust Mortgage.
Wintrust. If you're looking to do any type of buying, it doesn't matter if it's your first investment, you're looking to upsize, downsize, just get investment portfolio started, please reach out to us and we will be more than happy to help you along. And also in this link, we will also have my contact information, Sarah's contact information, and both of our links in there.
Thanks for watching.